When did you catch your ex practicing their fake tears? The bathroom door was cracked open just enough for me to see Madison's reflection in the mirror, and what I witnessed made my blood run cold. She was practicing crying, actually practicing it, pinching her thighs to make tears flow while rehearsing lines about her dying grandmother, in hushed, trembling whispers. "Please, I just need 5,000, she whispered to her reflection, letting a single tear roll down her cheek before wiping it away and starting again. Grandma Rose doesn't have much time left, and the experimental treatment in Houston is her only chance. I stood frozen in the hallway of her apartment, groceries still in my hands from our planned dinner together. We'd been dating for 3 years, and I'd come over early with ingredients for her favorite pasta dish as a surprise. The spare key she'd given me 6 months ago suddenly felt like evidence of a crime I was committing, even though she'd insisted I use it whenever I wanted. "The family's counting on me," Madison continued, her voice cracking perfectly on cue. "I wouldn't ask if I had anywhere else to turn. You know how much my grandmother means to me." The thing is, I did know how much her grandmother meant to her. Rose Martinez had raised Madison after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. I'd met Rose exactly once, at Madison's birthday party last year, where she'd seemed perfectly healthy and had even mentioned her recent cruise to Alaska. But more importantly, Rose had died 2 years ago. Madison had cried in my arms for hours after the funeral. My phone was already recording before I consciously decided to pull it out. Some survival instinct had kicked in, the same one that had been whispering warnings to me for months as Madison's stories became increasingly elaborate and her financial requests more frequent. "The doctors say the treatment has an 80% success rate," she practiced, adjusting her posture to look smaller, more vulnerable. "But insurance won't cover it because it's experimental. I've already called everyone else in the family, but you know how broke they all are." I backed away from the door slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The recording was still going, capturing every rehearsed sob and calculated pause. In the past 6 months, Madison had borrowed money from me 4 separate times, $800 for her sick cat, who I'd never seen, $1,200 for unexpected medical bills she'd never shown me, $300 for helping her sister, who lived 3 states away and supposedly had my number but had never called. Each time, I'd felt guilty for even hesitating. Each time, Madison had looked at me with those perfectly timed tears and made me feel like a monster for questioning someone I claimed to love. Each time, I transferred the money and then spent weeks wondering why something felt off, why the stories never quite added up, why I felt manipulated even as I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. "I know it's a lot of money," Madison whispered to the mirror, "but I promise I'll pay you back as soon as the insurance settlement comes through from Mom and Dad's accident. You trust me, don't you?" The insurance settlement. Another lie. That money had been spent on her college tuition years ago. She told me that herself during one of our early dates when she was sharing her tragic backstory. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. The recording was 12 minutes long, crystal clear, and absolutely devastating. Saturday's dinner party at Marcus and Jenny's house was suddenly going to be very interesting, especially since Madison had already texted a group chat about having something important to share with everyone. She had no idea I'd be sharing something important too. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, replaying the recording over and over until Madison's practiced sobs started to sound like nails on a chalkboard. My hands had finally stopped shaking, but now a different kind of tremor was setting in, the kind that comes with rage, not fear. The worst part wasn't even the money, though $2,300 was nothing to sneeze at on my marketing coordinator salary. It was remembering how she'd held me after Rose's actual funeral, how she'd whispered, "Thank you for being here," against my shoulder while I rubbed her back and promised I'd always support her through anything. I'd felt so connected to her that day, so trusted with her grief. Now I realized she'd probably been calculating how to use that funeral as emotional leverage down the road. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Babe, where are you? I thought we were cooking together tonight, Red Heart." Another buzz. "I actually have something kind of serious to talk about, family stuff. Nothing terrible. Just need my favorite person's advice, face blowing a kiss." I screenshot both messages and saved them to a folder I created called Evidence. Then I drove home without responding. Back in my apartment, I spread everything out on my dining table like a detective building a case. Bank statements showing the transfers, $800 on March 15th, $1,200 on April 22nd, $300 on May 18th, and another $500 on June 3rd that I'd almost forgotten about, something about her car needing emergency repairs. The texts where she promised to pay me back as soon as her freelance check came in, or right after her tax refund. The photos from her Instagram stories that never quite matched her supposed financial distress, dinner at Romano's, $40 entrees, a new Kate Spade purse, concert tickets to see the Lumineers. But it was the recording that made everything click into place. I listened to it again, this time taking notes. She'd mentioned the family counting on her, but Madison was an only child raised by her grandmother. She'd referenced calling everyone else in the family, but had told me countless times that Rose was her only real family connection. The insurance settlement she'd promised to use for payback had supposedly been spent years ago. Every single detail was crafted to manipulate me, and every single detail contradicted something she'd told me before. My laptop was still open to our shared Google Photos album from last weekend's trip to the farmer's market. Madison laughing over kettle corn, kissing my cheek next to the sunflower display, looking genuinely happy and carefree. Had any of it been real? Or was I just another performance venue, another audience for her elaborate emotional theater? I called my sister Rachel, who'd never particularly liked Madison but had been diplomatically quiet about it. "You sound weird," Rachel said immediately. "What did she do now?" "What do you mean, what did she do now?" "Jake. Come on. I've been waiting for this call for months. You've been different ever since you started dating her seriously. More anxious, second-guessing yourself constantly, always asking if you're being too paranoid about completely normal concerns." I stared at my reflection in my laptop screen. "You really thought something was wrong?" "I thought she was conditioning you to ignore your instincts," Rachel said quietly. "Mom thought so too, but we didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like we were attacking your girlfriend." The recording was still paused on my phone screen, frozen at the 8:47 mark where Madison practiced dabbing her eyes with tissue for maximum visual impact. Saturday's dinner party was in 3 days. I had 72 hours to decide whether I was really going to detonate my relationship and possibly my entire social circle with a 12-minute audio file. My phone buzzed again. Madison, getting worried, are you okay? Text me back when you get this 2 hearts. I turned the phone face down and started planning. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before in 3 years of dating Madison. I started paying attention to her lies in real time. She called at 8:23 a.m., right as I was getting ready for work. Babe, I'm so sorry about last night. I had the worst migraine and just crashed early. Rain check on dinner. I pulled up my phone's location history. Madison had been active on Instagram until 11:47 p.m., posting stories from what looked like Danny's bar downtown, the same bar where she told me she never went because it was too loud and crowded. In one story, barely visible in the background, I could make out red and black poker chips scattered on a table. No worries, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Hope you're feeling better. Actually. Her voice shifted into what I now recognized as performance mode, slightly breathier and more vulnerable. I might need to ask a favor later. Nothing major. But maybe we could grab lunch and talk. Can't today. Big presentation to prep for. Not entirely a lie, I did have a presentation, just not until next week. Oh. The disappointment seemed genuine, which somehow made it worse. Well, maybe I could just quickly tell you now. It's about my grandmother. My stomach clenched. Your grandmother, Rose? Yes, and Jake, it's not good news. I hung up. For exactly 30 seconds, I felt like a complete monster. Then I remembered the recording and played it back again. Grandma Rose doesn't have much time left. The same words, the same inflection, the same calculated pause. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts. Did we get disconnected? Jake? Something must be wrong with your phone, call me back. This is really important, I need to talk to you about Rose. I'm scared and I really need my boyfriend right now. I screenshot each message and added them to my evidence folder. At work, I couldn't concentrate on anything. My coworker Priya found me staring at my computer screen during our 2 p.m. marketing meeting, completely zoned out while our boss discussed Q3 campaigns. Dude, you look like you've seen a ghost, she whispered. Everything okay? During our coffee break, I found myself telling Priya everything. Not about Saturday's plan, that felt too volatile to share yet, but about the money, the inconsistent stories, the way Madison always seemed to need financial help right after I'd gotten a bonus or mentioned having a good month. Wait, Priya interrupted. She borrowed $2,300 from you in 3 months. Jake, that's almost a month of your rent. When she put it like that, it sounded even worse. She always pays me back eventually. Does she though? Priya pulled out her phone. Show me your Venmo. I reluctantly opened the app. Madison had paid me back exactly once, $200 of the original $800 from March, with the memo, thanks babe, red heart, more coming soon. Jake. Priya's voice was gentle but firm. That was 4 months ago. By 6 p.m., Madison had called me 11 times and sent 23 increasingly frantic texts. The messages had evolved from concern to frustration to what I was now recognizing as emotional manipulation in its purest form. I can't believe you're ignoring me when I'm dealing with a family crisis. Rose has been asking about you and I don't know what to tell her. I guess I know where I stand in your priorities. Fine, I'll figure this out alone like I always do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm just scared and I love you. The final text came at 6:47 p.m, I'm coming over. We need to talk face to face. I stared at that message for 10 full minutes, then drove straight to Marcus and Jenny's house. Jenny answered the door in yoga pants and a paint-stained t-shirt, looking surprised but pleased to see me. Jake. What's up? Madison's not with you. Actually, I need to ask you guys something about Saturday night. I stepped inside their familiar living room, where Marcus was assembling what appeared to be an extremely complicated IKEA bookshelf. Madison mentioned she has something important to share with everyone. Marcus looked up from his instruction manual. Yeah, she seemed pretty upset when she texted about it. Something about needing support from friends. He paused. Is everything okay with you two? Saturday was only 2 days away. Madison's performance was scheduled, the audience was prepared, and I was about to either save my friends from a very expensive guilt trip or completely destroy my credibility with everyone I cared about. Actually, I said, I think I might have something important to share too. Jenny and Marcus exchanged a look that told me they'd already been discussing Madison and me behind closed doors. The kind of careful, worried look that close friends share when they're watching a relationship implode in slow motion. Jake, Jenny said softly, settling onto their couch and patting the cushion beside her. We've been wanting to talk to you about some things, but we weren't sure how to bring it up. Marcus abandoned his bookshelf project entirely. Last month, when Madison came to Jenny's birthday dinner, she asked us for money too. My blood turned to ice water. What? $800, Jenny said quietly. She said you were having financial trouble after some unexpected medical bills, and she wanted to surprise you by taking care of it herself. She made us promise not to tell you because she said you'd be embarrassed. The room started spinning slightly. Medical bills. Something about emergency dental work. She said you were in a lot of pain but trying to hide it from everyone because you couldn't afford the procedure. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. She showed us pictures of you sleeping and said you'd been taking way too much ibuprofen just to get through work days. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the recording. I need you both to listen to something. But first, I need you to know that Madison's grandmother Rose died 2 years ago. We went to the funeral together. Jenny's face went pale. Jake, she told us just last week that Rose was doing better after her hip surgery. What hip surgery? She's been posting about it on her close friend's Instagram story for the past month, Marcus said, pulling out his own phone. Hospital visits, asking for prayers, the whole thing. Look. He showed me Madison's Instagram story highlights. There was an entire folder labeled Grandma Rose 2 Hearts Folded Hands, with photos of hospital waiting rooms, generic shots of elderly hands that could have belonged to anyone, and emotional captions about staying strong for family, and grateful for everyone's support during this difficult time. The photos were timestamped from the past 3 weeks. I recognized some of the locations. The waiting room photo was from Mercy General, where I'd taken Madison for her own strep throat treatment in April. She'd apparently gone back later to stage grief photos. How many people are on her close friends list for these stories? I asked. Jenny was already scrolling through her own phone. At least 30 people. Everyone from our friend group, plus her coworkers, some family friends. She looked up at me with dawning horror. Jake, how many people do you think she's asked for money? I played the recording. For 12 minutes, Jenny and Marcus sat in complete silence, listening to Madison rehearse her grandmother's fictional medical crisis with the dedication of a method actor preparing for Broadway. When it ended, nobody spoke for a full minute. Jesus Christ, Marcus finally whispered. Jake, this is. He trailed off, apparently unable to find words. Jenny was crying, real tears, not Madison's practiced ones. She's been planning this for weeks. Maybe months. All those posts about Rose, all that emotional groundwork. She wiped her eyes angrily. How many other people has she manipulated like this? My phone had been buzzing non-stop during the recording. 17 missed calls from Madison, and a series of texts that had escalated from concern to accusatory. Your car isn't at your apartment, where are you? I drove by your office and you're not there either. Jake, this is really immature, I need to talk to you about Rose. Fine, I'll just handle this family crisis completely alone. I can't believe you're abandoning me right now. I'm at your apartment waiting. We're going to talk about this tonight whether you want to or not. The last message had arrived 8 minutes ago. She's at my place, I said, showing them the texts. She's probably going to ambush me with a full performance the second I walk through the door. Marcus stood up and started pacing. Okay, but Saturday's dinner is still happening. She's still planning to ask everyone here for money using a dead grandmother as emotional leverage. We can't just let her scam our friends. What are you suggesting? Jenny and Marcus looked at each other again, and I could practically see them having an entire conversation without words. We're suggesting, Jenny said carefully, that maybe Madison's big announcement on Saturday night shouldn't be the only surprise of the evening. My phone rang again. Madison's contact photo, a selfie of us from our 6-month anniversary, flashed on the screen. In the photo, she was kissing my cheek while I smiled at the camera, looking completely, genuinely happy. I wondered if she'd already been planning her first financial scam when that picture was taken. Don't answer it, Marcus said. Not yet. First, we need to make some calls. The next hour turned into the most surreal strategy session of my life. Jenny made a pot of coffee while Marcus started mapping out our social circle on a piece of paper, trying to figure out who else might be on Madison's target list. My phone continued buzzing relentlessly. Madison had moved on to calling from different numbers, probably hoping I'd pick up thinking it was someone else. Okay, so we know she asked us for 800, Jenny said, settling back onto the couch with her laptop. And she's borrowed over 2,000 from Jake. That's almost $3,000 just between the three of us. Marcus was scrolling through his contacts. What about Sarah and Tom? They mentioned something weird a few weeks ago about Madison asking if they knew any good loan officers. And remember how she made that comment at Dave's birthday about everyone being so financially stable compared to her family situation? I felt sick. She's been working the entire group. There's more, Jenny said quietly, staring at her laptop screen. I've been going through her Venmo transactions, the public ones, anyway. Jake, look at this. She turned the laptop toward me. Madison's Venmo feed showed a steady stream of payments over the past 4 months, but not the kind I expected. Instead of the small, everyday transactions most people had, coffee shops, splitting dinner bills, paying back borrowed cash, Madison's account showed dozens of payments to and from people I didn't recognize. Most were for round numbers, $50, $100, $200. But the memo lines were what made my stomach drop. Thanks for helping with Mom's medical bills, Red Heart. Rose's treatment fund, you're an angel, folded hands. Emergency vet bill covered, love you. Car repair loan, paying back ASAP. So grateful for family friends like you, 2 hearts. The dates went back 8 months. Long before her grandmother's fictional health crisis, Madison had been running smaller cons on people whose names I didn't even recognize. This is her full-time job, I whispered. She's not just opportunistically asking friends for money. She's systematically working through everyone she knows. Marcus leaned over to look at the screen. Wait, scroll back up to that one from last Tuesday. He pointed to a $300 transaction. Look at the memo. Emergency root canal, thanks babe, you saved me. Face blowing a kiss. Jake, Jenny said slowly, didn't she tell us your medical emergency was emergency dental work? The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Madison had used my supposed dental crisis to get $800 from Jenny and Marcus, then turned around and used her own fictional dental emergency to get $300 from someone else. She was recycling the same lies across different social circles, probably keeping careful track of who had heard which version. My phone finally stopped buzzing around 9 p.m., but the silence was somehow worse than the constant ringing. Madison's last text had come through at 8:47, fine. I'll remember this when I really needed you. Don't bother coming to Saturday dinner. I'll tell everyone you couldn't handle supporting me through a family crisis. She's trying to control the narrative, I said, showing Jenny and Marcus the message. She wants to get to everyone first, frame me as the bad guy who abandoned her during a medical emergency. Not if we get there first, Marcus said grimly. He'd been making notes on his phone for the past 20 minutes. I just texted Dave, Sarah, and Tom. Told them we needed to talk before Saturday about something important involving Madison. They're all coming over here tomorrow night. Jenny was still digging through social media. Jake, you need to see this. She's got a whole other Instagram account. She turned her laptop screen toward me again. Look at the username, Madison Martinez_official. And look at the bio. The bio read, granddaughter and caregiver to Rose Martinez. sharing our journey through her cancer battle. Every prayer matters folded hands 2 hearts hashtag Rose Strong hashtag Family First hashtag Cancer Warrior. The account had 847 followers and was full of inspirational quotes overlaid on sunset photos, hospital corridors that could have been taken anywhere, and heartfelt captions about staying strong for grandma. The most recent post, from yesterday, showed a generic photo of an elderly woman's hands holding rosary beads. Praying for a miracle tonight. The doctors say the experimental treatment in Houston might be Rose's last hope, but the cost is overwhelming. I've never felt so helpless. If you're the praying type, please send some love our way tonight. Rose has been such a light in this world, and I can't imagine losing her. Broken heart hashtag need a miracle hashtag grandma's girl hashtag faith over fear. The post had 63 likes and 27 comments, most from people offering prayers and emotional support. But 3 comments made my blood run cold. Dmang you now sweetie, I might be able to help with expenses red heart. My church has a medical fund for situations like this. Let me make some calls. Honey, I know we haven't talked since high school, but I saw your post and I have some money saved up if Rose needs it. Family is everything 2 hearts. She's crowdfunding, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She's not just asking individuals for money. She's built an entire fake social media presence to run a medical fundraising scam. Jenny was scrolling through the comments, her face getting paler by the second. Jake, some of these comments are from people offering to organize benefit dinners. Church fundraisers. One person is asking about setting up a GoFundMe page. My phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. This time, I answered. Jake. The voice was unfamiliar, older, with a slight southern accent. This is Patricia Williams, I'm a friend of Madison's from her church group. She gave me your number and said you might be able to help coordinate some fundraising efforts for her grandmother's medical treatments. I looked at Jenny and Marcus, both staring at me with expressions of complete horror. Ma'am, I said carefully, I think there might be some confusion. Madison's grandmother passed away 2 years ago. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like an eternity. Son, Patricia finally said, her voice sharp with sudden understanding, I think you and I need to have a very serious conversation. Patricia Williams turned out to be a 63-year-old retired nurse who'd been attending St. Mark's Community Church for 40 years. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind at 7 a.m. the next morning, and when I arrived, she was already there with a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Mr. Peterson, she said, standing to shake my hand with a grip that could crush walnuts. Thank you for coming. I've been trying to figure out how to handle this situation for weeks. The folder contained printouts of Madison's Instagram posts, screenshots of text conversations, and what appeared to be a handwritten ledger with names, dates, and dollar amounts. Patricia had been keeping meticulous records. Madison started attending our church about 6 months ago, Patricia explained, spreading the papers across our small table. Sweet girl, very emotional about her grandmother's situation. She joined our prayer circle specifically to ask for support during Rose's cancer battle. I stared at the ledger. Patricia's handwriting was neat and precise, like she'd been documenting evidence for a court case. How much money are we talking about? From our congregation alone. $4,700 over 4 months. Patricia's jaw was set in a hard line. The women in my prayer circle organized 3 separate bake sales. Mrs. Henderson, who's 84 years old and living on Social Security, gave Madison $200 from her grocery budget because she said Rose reminded her of her own mother. My coffee suddenly tasted like ash. Patricia, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was. Oh, it gets worse. Patricia flipped to another page in her folder. Madison told us her boyfriend, that would be you, was also struggling financially because you'd lost your job and were too proud to ask for help. She said Rose's medical bills were putting strain on your relationship because you felt guilty that you couldn't contribute. The same lie, recycled and reshaped for a different audience. Madison had apparently told the church ladies that I was unemployed and struggling with depression about my financial situation, while simultaneously telling my friends that I needed expensive medical treatment. She showed us pictures of you looking tired and sad, Patricia continued, and said you'd been working 3 part-time jobs trying to stay afloat. Got the whole prayer circle lighting candles for your employment situation. I pulled out my phone and showed Patricia my LinkedIn profile, marketing coordinator at Henderson & Associates, employed for 3 years, recent promotion to senior coordinator. Her expression shifted from sympathetic to furious. That manipulative little. Patricia caught herself and took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I try not to speak ill of people, but this is beyond the pale. How did you figure out something was wrong? Patricia's smile was grim. 40 years of nursing teaches you to spot inconsistencies in people's stories. Madison's timeline never made sense. Rose's cancer kept changing, first it was pancreatic, then liver, then some mysterious form that required experimental treatment. The hospital locations kept shifting. And the financial needs kept escalating. She pulled out her phone and opened Facebook. Plus, I do volunteer work with the local hospice organization. When Madison mentioned Rose Martinez, I tried to look her up in our system to see if we could provide additional support services. My stomach sank. And you found the death records. Rose Elena Martinez died June 15, 2021. Buried at Green Lawn Cemetery. Patricia's voice was matter-of-fact, but her eyes were blazing. I even drove over to visit the grave site yesterday, just to be absolutely certain. Fresh flowers, probably placed there recently. Made me wonder if Madison's been keeping up appearances even at the cemetery. The folder contained photocopies of Rose's obituary, death certificate, and burial records. Patricia had built an airtight case. The question now, she said, is what we do about Saturday night. Because according to the church prayer chain, Madison's planning to make some kind of final appeal to her friend group for Rose's last chance treatment fund. I showed Patricia the recording I'd made 3 days ago. She listened with a stone-faced expression of someone who'd seen every kind of human deception in 4 decades of healthcare. When it finished, Patricia closed her folder with a decisive snap. Mr. Peterson, I think it's time we introduced Madison Martinez to some real consequences. Friday afternoon, Patricia and I had what she called battle stations set up in my apartment. She'd arrived at 2 p.m. with reinforcements, 3 other women from her church, all carrying folders and wearing expressions that could have melted steel. "This is Margaret Chin," Patricia said, introducing a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s. "She's a forensic accountant. Volunteer treasurer for the church for 15 years. Margaret opened her laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet that made my amateur evidence folder look like kindergarten homework. "I've been tracking Madison's financial pattern for the past 48 hours. Cross-referencing her Venmo activity with the church donation records and social media timeline. The numbers were staggering. Margaret had identified at least 14 different people who'd given Madison money over the past 6 months, totaling just over $8,200. But that wasn't the worst part. She's accelerating," Margaret explained, pointing to her graphs. "The frequency and amounts have been increasing steadily. In January, she was getting maybe $200 to $300 per month from 1 or 2 sources. By May, she was pulling in over $1,500 monthly from multiple people simultaneously. The third woman, introduced as Carol Santos, was apparently St. Mark's volunteer coordinator and had been quietly investigating Madison's background. I called the hospital Madison claimed Rose was receiving treatment at. No record of any Martinez family member being treated there in the past year." "Which hospital?" I asked. "All 3 hospitals she mentioned to different people." Carol's smile was razor-sharp. "Turns out Madison's been telling everyone a different medical facility, probably to avoid anyone comparing notes. Methodist General, St. Vincent's, and Cedar Hills Medical Center. I called all of them yesterday, claimed I was trying to send flowers to Rose Martinez's room. My phone had been mercifully quiet all day, no calls or texts from Madison since her angry message Wednesday night. But around 3 p.m., Jenny texted me, 'Madison just called asking if I knew why you were spreading lies about her family situation. She wants to meet with me and Marcus privately before tomorrow.' We told her no, but she sounded desperate." Patricia read the text over my shoulder. "She knows something's wrong. The question is whether she'll try to cancel tomorrow night's dinner or push forward with her original plan." At 4:17 p.m., we got our answer. Marcus forwarded a message Madison had sent to the group chat. "Hey everyone. I know I mentioned having something serious to discuss tomorrow night, and I still do, but I wanted to give you all a heads up that it's going to be really emotional for me. My grandmother Rose's condition has taken a turn for the worse, and the doctors are saying we need to move fast with the treatment options. I might need to ask for some advice about how to handle the financial side of things, since I'm pretty much her only family. I hope you'll all understand that this isn't easy for me to talk about. Thanks for being such amazing friends. Love you all, 2 hearts." "Look at the language," Margaret pointed out. "Ask for advice about the financial side, she's already softening them up, making it sound like she's just asking for guidance rather than money." Carol was scrolling through her own phone. And she posted another update on her fake Instagram account an hour ago. "Racing to the hospital, Rose took a bad turn this afternoon. Please pray for us. The manipulation is in overdrive." My apartment felt like a war room. Patricia had printed out copies of all our evidence and organized everything into presentation folders. Margaret had created a financial timeline showing Madison's escalating con game. Carol had documented all the fake medical claims and hospital lies. "Tomorrow night, Madison's expecting to walk into a room full of sympathetic friends ready to open their wallets," Patricia said. "Instead, she's going to face a room full of people who know exactly what she's been doing. What if she doesn't show up?" I asked. "What if she gets suspicious and just disappears?" Margaret smiled grimly. "Then she loses access to her entire primary social network and has to start over somewhere else with new people. That's expensive and time-consuming for someone running a con this elaborate. Plus," Carol added, "I've already contacted the other churches in town where she might try to set up shop next. Word travels fast in the faith community when someone's been running fake fundraising scams." My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. "Dude, Madison just called me asking weird questions about whether you've been acting strange lately and if I thought you might be having some kind of mental health crisis. She said she's worried you're trying to sabotage her family relationships because you're jealous of her close bond with Rose. What the hell is going on?" I showed the message to Patricia, who let out a low whistle. "She's trying to preemptively discredit you. Smart move, actually. If she can convince people you're having psychological problems, it undermines anything you might say about her." "That's not going to work," Margaret said confidently. "Not when we have this much documented evidence. She can't claim you're having delusions when we have bank records, death certificates, and recordings." At 6 p.m., Patricia gathered up her materials and prepared to leave. "Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Marcus and Jenny's house. We'll let Madison start her performance, give her enough rope to hang herself with, and then present the evidence." "What if this goes badly?" I asked. "What if people think we're the ones being manipulative by staging some kind of intervention?" Patricia paused at my door, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. Peterson, in 40 years of dealing with people in crisis situations, I've learned that the truth has a weight to it that lies simply can't match. When Madison tells her story tomorrow night, it'll sound hollow because it is hollow. When we present our evidence, it'll ring true because it is true." After they left, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the folder of evidence that would either vindicate me or destroy my social life in less than 24 hours. My phone rang. Madison's name appeared on the screen for the first time in 2 days. This time, I answered. "Jake." Madison's voice was different, smaller, more fragile than I'd ever heard it. "I've been so worried about you. Are you okay?" The contrast between this vulnerability and the practice performance I'd witnessed in her bathroom mirror made my skin crawl. But there was something else in her tone, something that hadn't been there before. Fear. "I'm fine, Madison. How's your grandmother doing?" A pause. "Too long. It's been really hard. The doctors are saying we need to make some big decisions soon about the treatment in Houston." Her voice cracked slightly. "Jake, I really need you right now. I know I've been asking a lot lately, but Rose is all I have left, and..." "Madison." I kept my voice steady. "Rose died 2 years ago. I was at the funeral with you." The silence stretched for 30 seconds. I could hear her breathing on the other end, could practically feel her recalculating. "What?" Her laugh sounded forced, brittle. Jake, what are you talking about? You're scaring me. Are you feeling okay? Maybe you hit your head or... I have a recording of you practicing this conversation in your bathroom mirror. Another silence. This one lasted almost a minute. When Madison spoke again, her voice had completely transformed. Gone was the vulnerable, frightened girlfriend. What replaced it was cold and sharp as broken glass. You recorded me without my consent in my own home. That's illegal in this state, Jake. And pretty fucking creepy, even for you. Is it more or less creepy than stealing $8,000 from friends and strangers using your dead grandmother as bait? 8,000. She laughed, and this time it sounded genuine. Jesus, Jake, you've really lost it, haven't you? I borrowed some money from you, which I'm paying back, and now you're having some kind of paranoid breakdown. Patricia Williams sends her regards. The line went dead. For exactly 10 seconds, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Then my phone started buzzing with texts from numbers I didn't recognize. This is Tom Rodriguez from St. Mark's. Patricia Williams gave me your number. Madison Martinez owes my family $400 and just blocked us on everything. We need to talk. Jake Peterson. This is Dr. Sarah Kim. I work with Madison and gave her $600 last month for her grandmother's treatment. Patricia says there's no grandmother. Is this Madison's boyfriend? She borrowed $200 from me in March and I just saw Patricia's Facebook post. What the hell is going on? Patricia had apparently activated some kind of communication network I hadn't known existed. My phone kept buzzing with messages from people whose names I'd never heard, all with the same story. Madison had borrowed money for Rose's medical expenses, and they just learned Rose was dead. At 8:30 p.m., Marcus called. Dude, Madison just showed up at our house crying. She's telling Jenny some insane story about you having a mental breakdown and becoming obsessed with proving her grandmother is dead. She wants us to stage an intervention for you tomorrow night instead of her doing her presentation. What did you tell her? That we'd think about it. But Jake, she seemed genuinely upset. Like, really crying, not the fake stuff. And she had what looked like hospital paperwork with Rose's name on it. My blood turned cold. What kind of paperwork? Treatment schedules, medication lists, some kind of insurance forms. Jenny took photos while Madison was in the bathroom. I'm texting them to you now. The documents looked official at first glance, Methodist general letterhead, proper formatting, medical terminology that sounded legitimate. But when I looked closer, something felt off about the fonts. The spacing was inconsistent. And the doctor's signature looked like it had been copied and pasted from somewhere else. I called Margaret Chin. Can you look at some documents? I think Madison just forged hospital records. Send them over. I'll have an answer in 20 minutes. While I waited, more texts kept arriving from Patricia's network. Madison just called me screaming about her psychotic ex-boyfriend, trying to ruin her family's reputation. Thought you should know she's making the rounds. She showed up at my house an hour ago with some story about you stalking her. Had fake-looking medical papers. I told her to leave. This is Carol Santos. Madison just posted on Facebook claiming you've been harassing her family during a medical crisis. The post is getting a lot of sympathy comments. You might want to screenshot it before she deletes it. Margaret called back at 9:47 p.m. The documents are fake. Good fakes, but fake. The medical record numbers don't match Methodist General System format, and the doctor she listed doesn't exist. Also, the metadata shows these were created in Microsoft Word yesterday afternoon. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Is this Jake Peterson? The voice was male, older, with a thick Boston accent. This is Detective Frank Morrison, Boston PD. I got your number from Patricia Williams. We need to talk about Madison Martinez. My apartment suddenly felt very cold. Did something happen to her? Mr. Peterson, Madison Martinez is wanted for questioning in connection with a charity fraud case up here. She ran a similar scam in Boston 18 months ago, fake dying relative, fake medical fundraising, multiple victims. Took us 8 months to build a case, and by the time we got an arrest warrant, she disappeared. I sank onto my couch. How much money are we talking about? Approximately $43,000 from 67 different people. Churches, co-workers, neighbors, friends, dating app matches. She was very thorough. Detective Morrison's voice was grim. Mr. Peterson, if she's running the same con in your city, tomorrow night might be your only chance to stop her before she disappears again. What do you mean, disappears? Madison Martinez isn't her real name. We're still working on figuring out who she actually is, but we've tracked similar scams to at least 3 other cities over the past 4 years. She's a professional, Mr. Peterson. This is what she does for a living. After Detective Morrison hung up, I sat in my dark apartment staring at my phone, trying to process the fact that I'd been in a relationship with someone who didn't even exist. Tomorrow night wasn't just about exposing a few lies to friends. Tomorrow night, I was going to confront a stranger. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, alternating between rehearsing what I'd say at tonight's dinner and staring at the ceiling, wondering how many other Jake Petersons were out there, men who thought they were in love with Madison Martinez, not knowing they were just marks in an elaborate long-term con. At 9:23 a.m., my phone rang. Jenny's name flashed on the screen. Jake, we have a problem, she said without preamble. Madison showed up here 20 minutes ago with 2 suitcases and a story about you threatening her last night. She's asking if she can stay with us for a few days until she figures out her next move. My stomach dropped. Please tell me you didn't. We said no, obviously. But Jake, she had bruises on her wrists. Fresh ones. And she was limping slightly, like maybe someone grabbed her or pushed her down. Jenny, I haven't seen Madison in person since Tuesday. I was at work yesterday until 6, then at my apartment with Patricia and her church friends until almost 10. I have witnesses. I know. That's what makes this so scary. Jenny's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus thinks she gave herself those bruises. Like, deliberately hurt herself to make you look violent and unstable. The thought made me physically nauseous. Where is she now? She left about 10 minutes ago when we wouldn't let her stay. But Jake, she seemed different. More calculating. Like she was studying our reactions instead of actually being upset. Jenny paused. She asked a lot of specific questions about tonight's dinner. Who's coming, what time, whether we told anyone else about her situation with Rose. What did you tell her? That dinner was still happening at 7, and that we hadn't discussed her family business with anyone because it wasn't our place to share. I could hear Marcus saying something in the background. Oh, and she specifically asked if you were still coming. When we said yes, she got this weird look on her face. Almost like she was pleased about it. After hanging up, I called Detective Morrison in Boston. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been expecting my call. Detective, Madison's escalating things here. She's claiming I physically assaulted her, and she's trying to control the narrative before tonight's confrontation. That's her pattern, Morrison said grimly. In Boston, when we started closing in, she accused her boyfriend there of stalking and domestic violence. Filed a restraining order, got him arrested. Bought herself 3 extra weeks to liquidate assets and disappear while he was dealing with the legal mess. So what do? Document everything. Witnesses, receipts, phone records, anything that proves your whereabouts and interactions. And Mr. Peterson? Morrison's tone grew serious. Don't underestimate her. The woman we're tracking has been doing this for years. She's not going to go quietly. I spent the morning creating a timeline of my activities for the past week, complete with credit card receipts, work emails, and text message screenshots. By noon, I had a 50-page document that could account for virtually every hour since I discovered Madison's bathroom rehearsal. At 2 p.m., Patricia called with disturbing news. Margaret's been digging deeper into Madison's financial history. We found something you need to know about. What now? She's been using Rose's social security number. Identity theft on top of the fraud. Rose's benefits have been getting deposited into an account Madison opened using forged documents. Patricia's voice was tight with anger. She's been stealing from a dead woman for 2 years, Jake. Using her grandmother's identity to establish credit lines, open bank accounts, even file fake tax returns. The scope of Madison's operation was staggering. This wasn't just a desperate person asking friends for money, this was organized crime. There's more, Patricia continued. Carol found Madison's real name through the church's background check system. Her actual name is Rebecca Chin. She's originally from Portland, Oregon, and she's wanted there too for running fake charity scams. Rebecca Chin. I'd been sleeping next to, cooking dinner with, planning a future with someone named Rebecca Chin who'd stolen a dead woman's identity and was systematically defrauding everyone I cared about. At 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jake, this is Madison. I'm using a friend's phone because I'm scared you might be tracking mine. I know last night got heated, and I said some things I didn't mean. Can we please talk before tonight? I'm willing to forget about the recording if you're willing to forget about this crazy idea that Rose is dead. We can start over. I love you. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Detective Morrison, Patricia, and Marcus. Then I turned off my phone and headed to Jenny and Marcus's house 3 hours early. It was time to end this. Jenny and Marcus's house felt like a fortress when I arrived at 4:45 p.m. Patricia was already there with Margaret and Carol, turning their dining room into what looked like a legal briefing station. Evidence folders were arranged across the table in neat stacks, and Margaret had her laptop connected to their TV screen, ready to display her financial timeline. Detective Morrison called me 20 minutes ago, Patricia said as I walked in. Rebecca Chen, that's Madison's real name, just used Rose's stolen identity to apply for a $15,000 personal loan from First National Bank. The application was submitted this morning. My blood ran cold. She's planning to disappear. Gets worse, Carol added, looking up from her phone. I've been monitoring her fake Instagram account. She posted an update an hour ago saying Rose passed peacefully this afternoon and thanking everyone for their support during this difficult time. She's shutting down the medical fundraising story. Margaret pulled up the post on the TV screen. There was Madison, Rebecca, in what appeared to be a hospital room, dabbing at her eyes with tissues. The caption read, "My beautiful grandmother Rose gained her wings today at 3:47 p.m. She fought so hard, but the cancer finally won. Thank you to everyone who helped us try to save her. I'm going to take some time away from social media to grieve privately. Rose would want me to remember that every ending is also a beginning. Broken heart baby angel hashtag rest in peace hashtag grandma's girl hashtag love never dies. She's killing off Rose publicly so she can't be caught using a dead person's medical crisis," I said, studying the image. But look at the timestamp, 3:47 p.m. She texted me at 4:30 claiming she wanted to start over and forget about Rose being dead. Jenny walked into the dining room carrying a bottle of wine and looking pale. I just got off the phone with Sarah and Tom. They're both coming tonight, but Madison called them an hour ago with some elaborate story about Rose dying this afternoon and how she needs to cancel dinner because she's too grief-stricken to be around people. What did they tell her? Marcus asked. That they understood, and maybe we should postpone everything until next week. Jenny set the wine down with shaking hands. But then I told them about Jake's evidence, and they both got really quiet. Tom said Madison borrowed $350 from him last month for Rose's oxygen tank rental. Margaret was typing furiously on her laptop. I'm tracking the timeline here. If she applied for that loan this morning using Rose's identity, and she's now publicly killing off Rose this afternoon, she's probably planning to collect that money and disappear within the next 24 to 48 hours. My phone, which I turned back on, immediately started buzzing with missed notifications. 7 calls from unknown numbers and a string of texts. Jake, please call me back. Rose died this afternoon and I need you. Sent at 4:23 p.m. I can't handle this alone. Whatever problems we've been having don't matter now. 4:31 p.m. The funeral home wants $8,000 up front for services. I don't know what to do. 4:44 p.m. I'm coming to dinner tonight. I need my friends right now, even if you hate me. 4:52 p.m. Why aren't you answering? Something terrible has happened and you're ignoring me. 5:03 p.m. Patricia read the messages over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. She's not backing down. She's doubling down. Even with Rose officially dead, she's still planning to ask people for money tonight, funeral expenses instead of medical bills. It's actually brilliant, Margaret said grudgingly. Funeral costs are immediate, emotional, and harder to verify than ongoing medical treatments. She can claim she needs everything from burial plots to catering for memorial services. At 5:45 p.m., Dave arrived early, looking confused and concerned. Okay, someone needs to tell me what the hell is happening. Madison called me crying about Rose dying, but then Marcus texted me saying I needed to get here early to discuss Madison's situation before dinner. Are we having some kind of intervention? Patricia stood up and extended her hand. Mr. Henderson, I'm Patricia Williams from St. Mark's Community Church. We need to show you something about the woman you know as Madison Martinez. For the next hour, we walked Dave through everything, the bathroom recording, the fake Instagram account, the church scam, Detective Morrison's call from Boston, the stolen social security number. Dave's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to fury as the evidence mounted. She asked me for $500 last week, he said quietly when we finished. Said Rose needed a special wheelchair that insurance wouldn't cover. I told her I'd think about it. He looked up at me with something close to horror in his eyes. Jake, how long has she been planning this? According to Detective Morrison, probably from the day she met me. Maybe earlier. Margaret's laptop chimed with an email notification. She glanced at the screen and her face went white. The loan went through. Rebecca Chen just received $15,000 deposited into an account at Mercy Credit Union. My phone rang. Madison's number. Everyone in the room went silent as I answered and put it on speaker. Jake. Madison's voice was thick with tears, real ones, from the sound of it. She's gone. Rose is really gone, and I don't know how to do this without her. Can you please just come over? I know we've been fighting, but I can't be alone right now. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't heard her practicing this exact scenario 4 days ago, if I hadn't seen the evidence spread across Marcus and Jenny's dining table, I would have been in my car driving to comfort her within minutes. Instead, I looked around the room at 6 faces staring back at me, and said, Madison, I'll see you at dinner tonight. We'll talk then. I don't think I can handle being around a group of people right now. This is too fresh, too raw. 7 p.m., I said, and hung up. Patricia checked her watch. 1 hour until showtime. Everyone ready? The last hour before Madison's arrival felt like the longest of my life. At 6:47 p.m., 13 minutes before Madison was supposed to arrive, my phone rang. Detective Morrison's name flashed on the screen. Mr. Peterson, we have a situation. Rebecca Chen just booked a one-way flight to Vancouver departing at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. She's planning to run. My stomach dropped. Can you stop her? Not without more evidence of criminal activity in your jurisdiction. But here's the thing, she also just made a $12,000 wire transfer to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. She's liquidating everything. Patricia grabbed my arm. Jake, if she's planning to disappear tomorrow morning, tonight isn't just about exposing her to our friends. It's about keeping her here long enough for the authorities to build a case. Margaret was already pulling up airline websites on her laptop. United Flight 447 to Vancouver, departing 6:30 a.m. If she doesn't show up tonight, she's probably already at the airport or close to it. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison, running a few minutes late. Rose's lawyer needed to discuss some urgent paperwork about her estate. See you soon, Red Heart. She's stalling, Carol said, reading over my shoulder. Probably trying to decide if it's worth the risk to come here or if she should just cut her losses and run now. Jenny paced nervously around their kitchen. What if she doesn't show up at all? What if we've prepared all this evidence and she just ghosts everyone? Then she loses access to a room full of people who were about to give her thousands of dollars for fake funeral expenses, Marcus pointed out. That's a lot of money to walk away from if she thinks she can still pull this off. At 6:58 p.m., we heard a car door slam outside. Patricia quickly shuffled all the evidence folders under the dining room table while Margaret minimized her laptop screens. Carol positioned herself near the kitchen where she could see the front door but remain out of initial view. Jenny opened the door before Madison could knock. Oh honey, Jenny said, her voice carefully neutral, I'm so sorry about Rose. Madison stepped inside wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy from crying. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than I remembered, and for just a moment I felt a flicker of doubt. What if we were wrong? What if there was some elaborate misunderstanding? Then I saw her glance quickly around the room, cataloging who was present, her gaze lingering just a fraction too long on Patricia and the other women she didn't recognize. Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, still sad, still vulnerable, but with a calculating edge that hadn't been there when she first walked in. Thank you, Madison whispered, accepting Jenny's hug. I almost didn't come tonight, but Rose always said that family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up when you need them most. Dave stepped forward to offer his condolences, and Madison dissolved into fresh tears against his shoulder. She was asking about you yesterday, she sobbed. She wanted me to tell you that you reminded her of her brother Miguel, he was always so kind to everyone. Over Madison's head, Dave's eyes met mine with a look of shocked recognition. He'd never met Rose. Madison was improvising details about a woman who'd been dead for 2 years, crafting intimate memories to manipulate his emotions in real time. Madison, I said quietly, I'd like you to meet some people. This is Patricia Williams and her friends from St. Mark's Community Church. Madison lifted her head from Dave's shoulder and turned toward Patricia with a polite, grief-stricken smile. It's nice to meet you. I'm sorry I'm not at my best tonight. She stopped mid-sentence. Her smile froze on her face as recognition dawned, and for exactly 3 seconds, I watched Rebecca Chen stare directly at Patricia Williams with the expression of a trapped animal calculating escape routes. Then the mask slipped back into place, but it was too late. Everyone in the room had seen it. Actually, Madison said, her voice suddenly steadier, I think I should probably head home. This is harder than I thought it would be. Stay, Patricia said quietly. We have some things we'd like to discuss with you about Rose. Madison's hand was already on the door handle when Patricia spoke again. We've been praying for Rose's recovery for months now. Such a shame about the experimental treatment in Houston not working out. Madison's fingers tightened on the handle, but she turned back with what looked like genuine confusion. I'm sorry, I don't think we've met before tonight. How did you know about Houston? St. Mark's Community Church, Patricia said evenly. You've been attending our prayer circle since February. We've donated $4,700 to Rose's medical fund over the past 4 months. The color drained from Madison's face, but she rallied quickly. Oh, of course. I'm so sorry, I'm not thinking clearly right now. The grief is just. She pressed a hand to her forehead. Thank you all so much for your support. Rose knew how much the congregation cared about her. Margaret stood up from her position near the laptop. That's interesting, because I called Methodist General this morning to arrange flowers for Rose's room. They have no record of any Martinez family member being treated there. There must have been some confusion, Madison said, taking a small step backward toward the door. Rose was actually at Cedar Hills Medical Center for most of her treatment. We called there too, Carol said, emerging from the kitchen. And St. Vincent's. No Rose Martinez at any of them. I watched Madison's eyes dart around the room, reassessing the situation. This wasn't the supportive friend group she'd expected to manipulate, this was an intervention she hadn't planned for. I don't understand why you're interrogating me on the day my grandmother died, Madison said, her voice taking on a harder edge. Jake, what is this? What did you tell these people? I told them the truth, I said, pulling out my phone. That Rose died 2 years ago, and we attended her funeral together in June of 2021. Madison's laugh sounded forced, brittle. Jake, you're scaring me. Are you having some kind of episode? We need to get you help. I also told them about the recording I made of you practicing this performance in your bathroom mirror on Tuesday night. The room went completely silent. Madison stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see her calculating her options. Run now and lose access to thousands of dollars from people who still believed her story, or try to salvage the situation somehow. She chose option 3. You recorded me without my consent in my own home, Madison said, pulling out her own phone. That's illegal surveillance, Jake. I'm calling the police. Please do, Patricia said calmly. Detective Morrison from Boston PD has been trying to reach you for 8 months, Rebecca. Madison's phone clattered to the floor. For exactly 5 seconds, nobody moved. Then Madison bent down slowly to pick up her phone, and when she straightened, the grieving granddaughter was completely gone. What stood in Jenny and Marcus's living room was someone I'd never met before, cold, calculating, and furious. I don't know who Rebecca is, she said evenly. My name is Madison Martinez, and you're all making a serious mistake. Margaret clicked a button on her laptop, and the TV screen lit up with a side-by-side comparison, Madison's fake Instagram account showing Rose's medical journey next to official death records from Greenlawn Cemetery dated June 15, 2021. The mistake, Margaret said quietly, was thinking we wouldn't figure out that you've been stealing from a dead woman for 2 years. Madison looked at the screen for a long moment, then back at all of us. When she smiled, it was sharp as broken glass. Prove it, she said. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Madison, Rebecca, stood in the center of Jenny's living room with her arms crossed, waiting to see if we'd actually follow through on our threats or if this was all an elaborate bluff. Patricia reached under the dining table and pulled out the first evidence folder. Rebecca Chen, born March 14, 1994 in Portland, Oregon. Arrested in 2019 for running fake charity scams targeting elderly church members. Charges dropped when you disappeared before trial. She slid a printout across the coffee table. Madison glanced down at it, and I saw her jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. You skipped town and resurfaced in Boston 8 months later as Madison Martinez, Patricia continued. Different hair color, different backstory, same dead grandmother scam. Detective Morrison has been tracking your movement patterns across 4 states. Margaret clicked to her financial timeline on the TV screen. Here's where it gets interesting. You've been using Rose Martinez's social security number to open credit accounts since September 2021, 3 months after we all attended her actual funeral. The dates lined up perfectly on Margaret's graph, showing a steady stream of financial activity under Rose's name starting just after I'd comforted Madison through her grandmother's death. Bank accounts, credit cards, loan applications, Margaret continued. You've stolen approximately $23,000 using Rose's identity, not counting the cash donations you've collected from individuals. Madison's phone started buzzing in her hand. She glanced down at it, and I saw her face go pale. That's probably Detective Morrison, I said. Patricia called him 20 minutes ago when you walked through the door. He's been waiting to hear from you for quite a while. You have no legal authority to detain me, Madison said, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. I can leave whenever I want. Carol stepped between Madison and the front door. Actually, we called the local police too. Officer Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit should be here any minute to discuss your loan application from this morning. What loan application? Margaret pulled up another document on her laptop. The $15,000 personal loan you took out using Rose's social security number at 9:47 a.m. today. That's federal identity theft, Rebecca. Not just fraud, felony identity theft of a deceased person. I watched Madison's eyes dart toward the back door leading to Jenny's kitchen, then toward the hallway that led to the bathroom and potentially a window. She was looking for escape routes. The money's already gone, isn't it? I asked quietly. Wire transfer to the Cayman Islands this afternoon, right around the time you posted about Rose's death on Instagram. Madison's phone buzzed again. This time she answered it, probably hoping it was someone who could help her. Hello. Her voice was carefully neutral. MS. Chen. The voice was loud enough for all of us to hear. This is Officer Rodriguez with Metro PD Financial Crimes Unit. We're outside 1247, Maple Street. We need to speak with you about some banking irregularities. Madison hung up without responding. Through Jenny's front window, I could see red and blue lights reflecting off the neighbor's house. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said, her voice gentle but implacable. You're going to walk outside with Officer Rodriguez and answer questions about Rose Martinez's stolen identity. Detective Morrison will probably want to extradite you back to Boston to face the original fraud charges. And the people you've stolen from here, Margaret added, will be filing civil suits to recover their money. All $8,200 of it, plus interest and legal fees. Madison stared at the door, then back at all of us. For a moment, she looked very young and very frightened, almost like the vulnerable girlfriend I thought I was dating. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You planned every bit of this. The question now is whether you're going to keep lying or finally tell the truth about who you really are. The police were knocking on Jenny's front door. Madison closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made her choice. Madison opened her eyes and looked directly at me with an expression I'd never seen before, not calculating, not manipulative, just exhausted. Jake, she said quietly, can I tell you something before they arrest me? Officer Rodriguez knocked again, more insistently this time. Metro PD. We need to speak with Rebecca Chin. Go ahead, I said, though Patricia was shaking her head frantically behind Madison's back. Madison sat down on Jenny's couch like her legs couldn't support her anymore. My real name is Rebecca Chin, and everything Patricia said is true. But Jake. Rose Martinez was never my grandmother. The room went dead silent except for the continued knocking at the door. I stole her identity from a cemetery in Phoenix when I was 24 and desperate, Madison continued. I was homeless, had no family, no money, no prospects. I saw her headstone with fresh flowers and realized someone had loved this woman enough to keep visiting her grave. My stomach twisted. So you decided to become her granddaughter. I researched her for weeks. Found her obituary online, learned about her family history, even tracked down photos from her social media before she died. Madison's voice was matter-of-fact now, like she was reciting a grocery list. Rose Martinez had a real granddaughter, Maria, who lives in Denver and never visits the grave anymore. Patricia stepped forward. What happened to Maria? Nothing happened to her. She just moved on with her life after her grandmother died, like normal people do. Madison looked up at me. I became the granddaughter Rose deserved to have. Someone who would keep her memory alive, who would make sure people still cared about her story. The knocking stopped. Through the window, I could see Officer Rodriguez talking into his radio, probably calling for backup. That's the most twisted thing I've ever heard, Dave said, his voice barely above a whisper. You turned a dead woman into your personal ATM machine and convinced yourself it was some kind of tribute? Madison's laugh was hollow. You want to know what's really twisted? Half the people who gave me money for Rose's medical bills never would have donated $1 to help Rebecca Chin get back on her feet. But a sweet old grandmother fighting cancer. Everyone opens their wallets for that story. Margaret was typing furiously on her laptop. How many cities, Rebecca? How many Rose Martinez's have you created? 7 cities over 4 years. Different names each time, but always the same story. Dying grandmother, experimental treatments, desperate granddaughter who just needs help saving the only family she has left. Madison met my eyes. You were just supposed to be a temporary boyfriend, Jake. Someone to make the story more believable, to give me social connections I could exploit. But you stayed for 3 years, I said. Because you were the first person who ever made me feel like Rebecca Chin might be worth something too. Her voice cracked slightly. The first person who didn't need me to be performing tragedy to pay attention to me. Officer Rodriguez was now peering through the front window, clearly trying to assess the situation inside. Patricia walked to the door. Officer, she's ready to come out. Wait, Madison said, standing up. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. Jake, this is everything I took from you. $2,300 in cash. I was going to pay you back after I disappeared, I swear. I stared at the envelope. With whose money, Rebecca? She had no answer for that. Officer Rodriguez entered with his partner, both with hands resting on their weapons but not drawn. Rebecca Chin. I need you to come with us to answer some questions about fraudulent loan applications. Madison nodded and walked toward the door without resistance. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. Jake. The day we went to Rose's funeral together. I cried real tears that day. Because for 2 hours, I got to pretend I was someone who had actually lost someone worth mourning. Then she was gone, leaving behind an envelope full of cash and the wreckage of a 3-year relationship that had never actually existed. The police car pulled away from Jenny's house at 8:47 p.m., taking Rebecca Chin, the woman I'd known as Madison Martinez, out of my life forever. The envelope she'd left behind sat unopened on the coffee table like evidence of a crime I was still processing. Well, Patricia said, settling back into her chair with the exhausted satisfaction of someone who just finished a marathon, that's not quite how I expected this evening to go. Margaret was already on her laptop, pulling up news articles. Rebecca Chin was arrested in Portland in 2019 for almost the exact same scam. Fake dying grandmother, church donations, boyfriend who had no idea what was happening. She got 18 months probation and disappeared during her community service. So this isn't her second time, Dave said, staring at the door she just walked through. This is probably her 5th or 6th time. Officer Rodriguez had left his card and explained that Detective Morrison would be flying in from Boston tomorrow to coordinate Rebecca's extradition. The loan fraud charges alone would probably get her 3 to 5 years in federal prison, assuming she didn't disappear from custody again. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Rachel. Mom saw the arrest on the local news. Are you okay? Do you need us to come over? The local news. Of course this was going to be all over town by morning. Local woman arrested for elaborate grandmother fraud would probably be the headline, with my photo as the unsuspecting boyfriend who helped expose her. Jake, Jenny said gently, you should probably open that envelope. Inside was exactly $2,300 in cash, mostly 20s and 50s, like she'd been saving it up over time. There was also a handwritten note on hotel stationery. Jake, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I never spent your money on gambling or drugs like most people probably think. I saved every dollar because some part of me hoped I could be Rebecca Chen for real someday, starting with paying back the one person who never asked me to prove I deserved his kindness. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to try. M. Madison wasn't even her real initial. After 3 years together, I realized I'd never actually learned anything true about the person I'd been sharing a bed with. Patricia collected her evidence folders while Margaret printed copies of everything for the police report. Carol was already on her phone with Reverend Williams, alerting other churches in the region to watch for similar scams. The church members are going to want their money back, Patricia told me as she packed up. Rebecca's savings account had about $1,800 left when they froze it this afternoon. Not nearly enough to cover what she stole from all of us. Take this, I said, holding out the envelope. It's not everything, but it's a start. Patricia stared at the cash for a long moment. Jake, that's your money. You were her victim too. Mrs. Henderson is 84 and living on Social Security, I replied. She needs it more than I do. By 10 p.m., Jenny's house was empty except for the three of us. Marcus ordered pizza while Jenny opened a bottle of wine, and we sat in their living room trying to process what had just happened. So, Marcus sat around a bite of pepperoni, anyone else feeling like they just survived something completely insane? My phone rang. Detective Morrison's number. Mr. Peterson, just wanted to update you. Rebecca Chen is being held without bail pending extradition. We found evidence linking her to similar scams in at least 6 other cities. You probably saved dozens of people from losing their life savings. After I hung up, Jenny raised her wine glass. To catching Madison practicing her fake tears, she said. And to Jake having the courage to record it instead of pretending everything was fine. We drank to that. 3 months later, I got a letter from the Oregon State Correctional Institution. Rebecca Chen had pled guilty to federal fraud charges and received 4 years in prison. She'd also been ordered to pay $127,000 in restitution to her victims across multiple states. The letter included one final note: Jake, I'm getting therapy now. Real therapy, not the kind where I manipulate counselors into feeling sorry for me. My therapist says I need to make genuine amends, not just return stolen money. So here's the truth, you deserved better than Rebecca Chen's lies. I hope someday you find someone worthy of the kindness you showed a stranger. Rebecca. I kept the letter for exactly 1 day, then threw it away and went on my first real date in 3 years. This time, I made sure she existed first.